This is Mark with Aardvark Reloading, and this is the Lee At-Press Deluxe, the primer delivery system. What to do if you inadvertently let this system come apart. This is how to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. To work on the primer delivery system, you're going to have to disconnect it from the press. Simply disconnect the two springs and remove that main screw. And there's another hidden one underneath that rail. It's right in the middle of the rail and it's pointing straight upward, but know that that screw hole will be even with this other hole. But make note of the threads. They're similar screws. Sometimes they're a little bit different. The more aggressive screw threads will go into the plastic rail. But don't lose track of these screws. You'll hate yourself. This 3D graphic was provided courtesy of Lee Precision, and it shows that the primer gate here in silver, and that little knob is the key to the whole system. It has to go together in a certain order. This is like a Chinese jigsaw puzzle where everything fits together in such a manner. Let's start with what I call the primer gate. That separates one primer from the next in line. The slider, I call that bottom piece here the doorknob. The selector, primer selector button, or just primer selector for short. The trough bottom, this is the primer escape lever. I'm going to call that the duck for obvious reasons. This is the spring snugger. I'm going to call that the tower. And this is what I call the primer chute. I might refer that to as the gooseneck. I would also have a small rubber band handy. Turn this so I'm looking at the bottom side of this rail, but that middle part right there fits in this area right in front of the primer chute. Fits in that little notch area right there. This particular view is looking from underneath the Lee At-Press upward toward the gate. My gate is going to face arrow side down in that little notch right there. I got lucky. It just dropped into place. But it will go back and forth in this direction easily. It will fit in there, but it will clear where the primer slider, the doorknob, slides back and forth here. It will clear all that. It's very possible to install the gate in backward. Make sure that little protrusion can come in contact with the slider, otherwise the whole system will not work. Next, I'm looking at the bottom of this rail system currently, but I'm showing you where the doorknob fits. The doorknob will fit toward the front of this slide area to the back. So when I refer to this hook, the slider, I'm referring to this as pulling the slider out, pulling the slider back in. So looking at from the top angle, top view, I'm going to put this in through that opening, clearing, hopefully not knocking that gate out of the way. And I'm going to push this in, looking at the bottom here, so that the slider doorknob will engage in the beginning of the slide on the bottom. And I should be able to push up on the tongue and pull out on the hook. And you'll feel it pop or snap into place. This should go forward and back. It has plenty of clearance in here to allow this to move in and out easily. Now I'm going to flip this thing back over. I'm currently looking at the bottom. I'm going to flip it back over, and you can see the two rectangle areas and I'm going to put the short leg in that rectangle. The long leg goes on this side To clear all this, I'm going to pull the hook out, not all the way, just the hook out so that I have 2 gaps right there. And I'm going to hold it with my thumb to hold it in place and drop this primer selector so it straddles that little cross piece, and I'm going to push it down easily. And then I'm going to re-engage the slide inward to hold it all into place. But that primer selector, you should be able to push up on the bottom here to push it up, and push down on that button to go for large primers. So up is for small primers, down is for large primers, as it states right there on this text. Next, I'm going to turn this thing upside down this way. It all should be holding together pretty well. I've got my hook pretty much the end of this slider, the tongue, is even with this circle here. And the primer trough, the bottom trough, that will fit where the printed side, mine says part number 3 there, and that will face toward the inner workings of all this. So the flat side of this trough, it will fit in this gap area right here. As I stated earlier, that little horseshoe hook, probably going to be very difficult to see, but that's going to fit underneath right here. I wish I had a different colored pointer than black, but it's going to fit under here. The ledge here, that tongue, is going to fit in between here, as I stated earlier. So you're going to kind of drop this into place over that primer selector, but tuck that horseshoe underneath that plastic area right there, and it will kind of snap into place. So now that horseshoe is actually tucked under that ledge right there. It's tucked under, so the action in and out is only about less than 1/16 of an inch. And the selector tongue now can move freely in and out, but this whole thing is pretty much secure, and I can probably shake it at this point and it won't come apart. But to ensure it doesn't come apart, I'm going to put this rubber band over the top of all this. I'm going to clear that screw hole, and I'm going to move the rubber band so it's right here between large and the word down. And we're going to hold all this together. And for a medium-sized rubber band, I'm going to get about 3 turns on it. And making sure it isn't too far to my right. You want it up here so it doesn't interfere with anything. And at this point, the tongue should go in and out freely. One of the last things I'm going to do is put my duck on, and I'm going to pull the selector all the way out. I'm going to pull the slider all the way out. The duck is going to face away from this round circle, take a drink of water, and hang his head over this rod that spans over the top of the system, it'll easily snap into place. That way, when you put the slider, it will make the duck's bottom go up and down, what I call the flag. The tower, that's probably one of the easier parts to install. The big end, the large end of that tower faces inward or to the rail system's left. It merely fits right there. That you have to install the spring first onto the hook, but that piece fits right like that rather easily. There it goes. Fit. You got to talk to it. There it goes. Fit. Yeah. And then lastly, the primer chute, that gooseneck, that merely squeezes together and fits on top. You'll see where it goes. This is pretty much a no-brainer. But it actually needs about 5 or 6 primers in that chute to have enough weight to push the primers forward onto the tongue. So when you get low on primers here, that gate won't have enough weight to push the primers forward onto the tongue. I'm actually going to take that primer chute back out so I can show you the operation of that gate. As that tongue moves in and out, you should see that primer gate move laterally back and forth. So it doesn't rock like I told you in the earlier video. It slides laterally. Open means not that this is open, but to open up the entire tray, and that will allow you to pour, I don't know, 50, 60 primers in there. Now I reload primers, so all these primers you'll notice don't have the anvils in them, nor any powder. But you want to shake it and make double sure that none of these are flipped upside down. Carefully close it. Put this into the lock position. If you have a primer hung up in here, in that area, it'll make this switch ineffective. Lock means it will lock that gate closed so these primers can't come out of the chute. When I push this in the top position, these primers should come out freely. Yeah. So I'm going to put it in its lock position right now. And then I'm going to install it onto the top of this chute. Of course, I'll put it back onto the system, and then I'll put it into its on position. And they should fill up this primer chute here easily, maybe with some agitation or vibration. It'll fill up that chute automatically for you, and it'll feed the primers in one after the other. That primer gate is doing its job. Beautiful. For safety purposes, it's important to keep that chute clear after a reloading session. I would tap it on the back of the gooseneck, will help push those primers forward, or keep a wooden toothpick handy to clear out that chute area. Special shout out to Reno. Thank you for your technical assistance. Without your help, this video would not have been possible. This is Mark on aardvarkreloading.com. We are growing. We now have 3 MeWe groups in which to choose, a primer library to help keep track of the information, and now a Microsoft Teams area to meet virtually. Making several hundred primers in an afternoon is not only possible, it's becoming more and more routine.